Happiness is something most of us are searching for, yet the harder we look for it outside, the more distant it seems to become. We chase comfort, success, approval, and certainty, believing that once we reach the next milestone, peace will finally arrive. But somehow, it never stays. According to Buddhist wisdom, happiness is not something we collect from the world. It is an inner state, shaped quietly by the way we think, act, and relate to life itself. When the mind is restless, even abundance feels empty. But when the mind is calm, even ordinary moments carry warmth. The teachings of the Buddha were never meant to complicate life. They were meant to simplify it, to guide us back to a place of balance, clarity, and gentle joy. In this video, we will explore 7 timeless Buddhist teachings that can help you live with more peace, more presence, and a deeper sense of contentment. If these teachings resonate with you, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay with us on this peaceful journey inward. 1. Live in the present. Most people move through their days without ever truly arriving where they are. The body may be here, but the mind is almost always somewhere else, replaying old conversations, regretting choices that cannot be changed, or rushing ahead to imagine futures filled with worry and expectation. Even during quiet moments, the mind rarely rests. While eating, we think about work. While resting, we think about what comes next. Life keeps happening, yet we keep missing it. This constant drifting creates a subtle exhaustion, a feeling that we are always behind, always catching up, always living just slightly out of sync with ourselves. Buddhist wisdom gently reminds us that this inner restlessness is not caused by life itself, but by the habit of leaving the present moment again and again. The past already exists only as memory, and the future exists only as thought. They have no life of their own unless we continuously return to them with our attention. The present moment, however, is different. It is the only place where breathing happens, where the heart beats, where awareness is alive. This does not mean we deny the past or abandon responsibility for the future. It simply means we understand that peace cannot be stored in yesterday or borrowed from tomorrow. Happiness does not bloom in anticipation or regret. It grows quietly in the now. When attention returns to the present, even simple experiences regain their depth. A slow breath entering and leaving the body, warm sunlight resting on the skin, the gentle weight of stillness between two thoughts. These are not dramatic moments, yet they are real, and they are enough. Presence does not ask us to escape life or change who we are. It asks us to stay, to fully drink a cup of tea instead of rushing through it, to listen without planning a reply, to walk without hurrying toward the next destination. When we remain with what is, the mind naturally softens. Thoughts lose their urgency. The body relaxes. The constant sense of lacking begins to fade. In staying present, we discover that peace was never missing, only overlooked. Nothing new needs to be added. Nothing needs to be fixed. In this simple act of being here, fully and gently, life feels lighter, clearer, and more complete, just as it is. 2. Practice compassion. Many people carry an invisible weight within themselves, not because life is cruel, but because the mind has learned to be harsh. Old mistakes are replayed again and again, long after their lessons have already been learned. At the same time, the future becomes a quiet source of fear, filled with imagined failures and outcomes that may never arrive. Between regret and worry, the mind turns into a constant judge, speaking more critically to us than anyone else ever could. Even moments meant for rest are often filled with self-correction, comparison, and blame. This inner struggle slowly drains warmth from the heart and replaces it with tension and fatigue. Buddhist teachings invite us to notice this pattern without condemning it. They remind us that suffering deepens when we respond to pain with more pain. If we look closely at nature, we see a different way of being. A tree does not criticize itself for growing slowly, nor does a river resist the shape of the land it flows through. They do not replay yesterday or fear tomorrow. They simply respond to each moment as it comes, growing, adapting, and continuing without self-attack. Compassion, in this sense, is not a weakness or an excuse. It is not indulgence, and it does not mean ignoring responsibility. Compassion is the quiet strength of meeting experience with understanding rather than punishment. It is the ability to look at another person's struggles and recognize our own, and to look at ourselves with the same patience we often reserve for others. When compassion replaces harshness, something begins to soften inside. The heart no longer feels the need to defend itself. We listen more deeply. We react less impulsively. Connection becomes possible again, not because life is suddenly perfect, but because we stop adding unnecessary suffering. Compassion creates space where healing can occur naturally. When we learn to speak to ourselves gently, we discover that understanding brings far more change than blame ever could. In choosing compassion, we choose not to wound further. We allow warmth to return, and in that warmth, a quiet joy begins to grow, rooted not in perfection, but in acceptance. 3. Embrace simplicity. Modern life quietly convinces us that happiness is something we accumulate. More possessions, more achievements, more experiences, more validation. Even when our basic needs are met, the feeling of not enough lingers. There is always something new to want, something missing to chase, something better just out of reach. This constant pursuit fills our days and our minds until life begins to feel crowded. Not always busy in appearance, but heavy inside. The more we add, the more tired we become, yet stopping feels almost uncomfortable, as if slowing down means falling behind. Buddhist wisdom offers a different perspective. It teaches that suffering does not arise from having too little, but from clinging too tightly. Desire itself is not the problem. Attachment is. When the mind holds on, even abundance feels fragile. Simplicity, in this sense, is not about deprivation or renunciation. It is about release. It is the quiet relief that comes when we stop carrying what we no longer need. Imagine a room filled with objects, every surface occupied, every corner crowded. Movement becomes difficult, and nothing truly stands out. Now imagine that same room with space. Fewer objects, more light, more air. Nothing essential is missing, yet everything feels clearer. The same is true for the mind. When it is filled with endless wanting, comparison, and expectation, even good moments pass unnoticed. But when desire softens, awareness expands. Simplicity allows us to see what is already here. A peaceful morning, a sincere conversation, a moment of stillness that does not demand anything more. This clarity does not make life smaller. It makes it more vivid. When we embrace simplicity, we begin to recognize the difference between what supports us and what drains us. We learn that letting go is not a loss, but a return to ease, to presence, to contentment that does not depend on accumulation. Life becomes quieter, but also more meaningful. In simplicity, we stop confusing fullness with excess. We start to experience enough as a place of rest, rather than limitation. If this reflection speaks to you, take a moment to gently support this channel by liking the video or subscribing for more teachings like these. Together, we continue this journey toward a clearer, lighter way of living. 4. Detach from desire. Desire often arrives quietly, disguised as motivation or hope. We tell ourselves that once we reach a certain goal, once we obtain a particular thing, or once life looks a certain way, peace will finally follow. Yet when that moment arrives, the satisfaction is brief. Almost immediately, the mind moves on, searching for the next target, the next improvement, the next promise of happiness. Achievement after achievement, the sense of fulfillment remains just slightly out of reach. This pattern creates a constant state of striving, where rest feels undeserved and contentment feels temporary. Buddhist teachings gently reveal that this endless pursuit is not a personal failure, but a natural consequence of attachment. Desire itself is not wrong. It becomes exhausting when it begins to control us. The Buddha often spoke of impermanence, reminding us that everything we cling to is constantly changing. When happiness depends on what cannot stay, stability becomes impossible. A simple metaphor helps illuminate this truth. Imagine holding sand in your hand. The tighter you grip, the faster it slips through your fingers. The more you try to secure it, the more you lose. Desire works in the same way. The harder we try to possess outcomes, people, or identities, the more anxious and dissatisfied we become. Detachment does not mean rejecting life or abandoning goals. It means learning to hold experiences with openness rather than fear. We can appreciate without clinging, strive without tension, and enjoy without grasping. When desire loosens its grip, the mind begins to breathe again. Energy that was once spent on chasing and controlling returns to us. We no longer feel pushed forward by craving or pulled apart by expectation. Letting go is often misunderstood as giving up, but in Buddhist wisdom, letting go is an act of clarity. It is the moment we stop dragging ourselves away from peace in search of something more. In releasing attachment, we do not lose life. We finally meet it, free from the exhausting need for it to be different than it is. 5. Cultivate gratitude. The human mind has a quiet habit of measuring life by what is missing. We notice what has not yet arrived, what could have been better, what others seem to have that we do not. Over time, this way of seeing turns even a stable life into a source of dissatisfaction. We forget that beneath all expectations, something essential is already present. We are still breathing. We are still here. We are still learning, still changing, still given another day to experience this moment. Buddhist wisdom invites us to gently shift this perspective, not by forcing positivity, but by widening awareness. Gratitude does not require life to be perfect or pain to disappear. It only asks us to notice what is quietly supporting us right now. The Buddha taught that even in difficulty, there is always something that remains untouched. The body continues to breathe. The heart continues to remember kindness. Awareness itself remains open. When we pause and look back, we often realize that we have been carried through far more than we recognize. Gratitude is not about denying hardship. It is about seeing that hardship exists alongside care, resilience, and unseen support. This awareness begins to change how life feels. Attention naturally moves towards small, real moments. A brief pause of calm between tasks, a gentle breeze, a kind word that arrives unexpectedly. These moments may seem ordinary, but they are deeply grounding. They remind us that joy does not need to be loud or dramatic to be real. As gratitude takes root, desire begins to soften. The heart stops demanding that life prove itself. Contentment becomes quieter, steadier, and less dependent on circumstances. Joy shifts from excitement to presence. It does not shout for attention, but it stays. In cultivating gratitude, we learn to rest in what is already given. Life feels less like a problem to solve and more like something to receive, one simple moment at a time. 6. Meditate daily. Many people ask how to find peace in a world that never seems to slow down. The noise does not only come from outside, but from within. Thoughts move constantly, reacting, planning, remembering, and worrying, even when the body is still. We try to manage this restlessness by changing our circumstances, hoping that silence will appear once life becomes easier or more controlled. Yet Buddhist wisdom offers a much simpler answer. Peace does not come from fixing the world. It comes from sitting with ourselves as we are. Meditation is not an escape from life, nor is it a technique to force the mind into silence. It is the gentle practice of observing without interference. When we sit quietly, without trying to solve anything, we begin to notice how the mind behaves. Thoughts arise and pass on their own. Emotions move like waves, never staying long. The mind, when left undisturbed, naturally settles. The Buddha often compared the mind to a body of water. When stirred, it becomes cloudy. When left alone, clarity returns by itself. Meditation allows this natural clarity to emerge. There is no need to suppress thoughts or chase calm. Simply allowing awareness to rest is enough. Over time, This stillness begins to influence daily life. Reactions soften. Decisions become clearer. We respond rather than react. Meditation does not require long hours or special conditions. Even a few minutes each day, practiced consistently, can create a deep shift. What matters is not duration, but sincerity. Sitting quietly, breathing naturally, and returning attention whenever it wanders is enough. This simple act nurtures wisdom in a quiet, steady way. As stillness grows familiar, peace becomes less dependent on circumstances. We learn that calm is not something we must create, but something we allow. In returning to ourselves each day, we reconnect with a clarity that has always been present, waiting beneath the noise. 7. Follow the middle way. Human beings often move between extremes without realizing it. At times, we push ourselves relentlessly, striving, controlling, and demanding more in the hope that effort will lead to security. At other times, we swing in the opposite direction, letting go completely, drifting without direction, believing that detachment means disengagement. Both approaches create exhaustion in different ways. Too much tension tightens the heart. Too much looseness drains purpose. Buddhist wisdom describes this pattern clearly and offers a gentle alternative known as the middle way. The middle way is not about living halfway between two extremes in a rigid or mechanical sense. It is about alignment. It is the ability to sense when effort becomes force and when ease becomes avoidance. The Buddha taught that balance is found by listening deeply to our own experience rather than following rules imposed from outside. Living the middle way means moving with awareness instead of reaction. It means acting without aggression and resting without neglect. Balance in this teaching is not passive. It is responsive. We do what needs to be done, but we do not harm ourselves in the process. We allow rest without guilt and effort without struggle. Knowing when to continue and when to stop becomes an act of wisdom rather than discipline. Over time, this balanced way of living creates stability. Life may remain unpredictable, and challenges may still arise, but the inner foundation grows stronger. We are no longer pulled to extremes by fear or desire. The heart stays steady, even when circumstances shift. Happiness in this state does not need to be chased. It settles naturally when the mind is no longer divided. The middle way teaches us that peace is not found in perfection or constant control, but in staying close to ourselves. When we live in balance, life does not become flawless, but it becomes grounded. And in that groundedness, a quiet, lasting happiness remains. As we come to the end of these teachings, remember that inner peace is not about becoming someone new or living a flawless life. It is about returning, again and again, to what is simple, balanced, and true within you. The Buddha's wisdom was never meant to pull us away from the world, but to help us move through it with clarity, patience, and presence. These teachings are not goals to achieve in a single day, but gentle reminders to live with awareness, compassion, and balance, one moment at a time. If this video brought you a sense of calm or reflection, support this channel by liking the video and sharing it with someone who may need these words today. Subscribe for more Buddhist wisdom and mindful teachings to guide your journey. And before you go, leave a comment below sharing which teaching resonated with you the most. May your path be steady, your heart be light, and your days be filled with quiet peace.